Hello everybody again. I'm John Addison and I'm here at Zitnik Trains, and I'm going to talk today about how to color brick, use paper, and use wood in your modeling. Whether you're building kits or you're buying something like this right here and working on it. I'll show you how to color the brick, mainly how to make things look older. That's kind of what this clinic is about. So I'll get started on this right here. I have your basic orange, as you can see right here, and I'm going to put some of that on this piece of cardstock. And then I have some yellow. This is a school bus yellow, but any yellow will work. Doesn't really matter. And I'll put some yellow here. And then here is some regular flag red, and it is now these are my basic colors. Sometimes I'll use this as a base color first. This is like a barnyard red, and I'll use that sometimes. Now the key to the kingdom are these things right here. These are pieces of drywall sponge. You buy a drywall sponge, it'll last you forever, cutting off pieces like this, and they work really good. What you simply do is you dip it in, like I'm going to dip it in this yellow and an orange. And I'm going to spatter it around on this a little bit, on this piece of, and then I'm going to come in here and kind of stencil it on. Lightly touching it. I'm not pressing really hard. I'm lightly touching. That's important. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to press real hard like I'm doing now. I'm pressing really hard, but you don't want to do that when you're doing this, because you'll hide the detail that you're trying to bring out. I'm doing a red color here, so it's harder to see it now. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's kind of hard to see, but now for getting in smaller areas, I use something like this right here. This is a piece of foam also, but it's cut into a pencil shape. And to get into hard, I'll dip this in the yellow and the orange, and I get in here. And sometimes you have to just use a little brush to get into spots, because you can't get into some of the spots you just can't get into at all without something really small. You have to use a small brush. Now, it doesn't look like much now, but when it dries, it will. Here's a bigger piece. This is, I think, some O-scale plastic brick. And I'm going to use this piece of foam right here again. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see something. Then I'm going to kind of split on here. The idea is you're hitting just the tops of the brick. You're not hitting, and I'll pass some of this stuff around so you can see it, but that's what you're doing. You're just hitting the tops of the brick. And like I said, drywall sponges seem to be excellent for this. I'll show you some other applications you can do with drywall sponges too. But this is mainly making brick older looking. Like so. I'll hold that up where you can kind of see it a little bit. Now, if I want to use some mortar, I talk about Fast and Final, which is a really good mortar material. But I'm going to just use some of this basic old white here. And I'm going to just dip my finger in there, like so. And on this part that I've already done, I'm going to rub it in like that, and then I'll put a little bit of water right in here. You want to make sure you can use paint, but you got to get it off pretty quick. Now I'm going to take this piece of tissue, and I'm going to take it right here and get it moist. Come across and start rubbing this off. Now you can kind of see that right there, and I'll pass it around where you can see it, but here you can see what it looks like right here. Okay, and like I said, I would do a better job than that, but this is just for the, I'll pass that around. That's just for the clinic, for just showing you how it's done. Now Fast and Final works a little bit better. You take Fast and Final and you kind of paint all the brick, and then you rub it off. And you can do the mortar before you do your extra coloring of your brick. You can do the mortar first. Okay, sometimes that's easier than trying to wipe it off the face of the brick. And but I use Fast and Final, or you can just use white paint like I just did. Now, there are many kinds of material, brick material, that you can use. This right here is, this is some O-scale paper brick, and it has fairly good realism. Now up here at the top, right there, I simply glued on, after I painted, I glued on a piece of cardstock with a piece of wood on there. The idea when you're using paper, you want to give it some 3D effect. That's the idea. The sign is sign on here, or in this case, you put a window in there, a 3D window, because the brick, of course, has no texture. You have to spray the paper brick first with a flat fixative. Then you can go in there and actually stipple on paint, or go in and paint individual bricks. You can take it right here and take a little ink pen and kind of draw some crack lines or whatever. All that kind of stuff. That's kind of hard to see right there, but you kind of get the idea. This is some S-scale brick right here, but this would actually work. This would actually work in HO very well. Now I did this last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't do the, I didn't get the corners real good. But if I was using this paper brick to make a structure, which I intend to do at a local club I belong to, I would get the corners really good. But I didn't pass that around right there. And you can see the flat fixative spraying that paper brick, that gives you some texture, some teeth, so you can actually stencil on whatever you're going to do, stencil on paint, or just lightly brush paint and then take your fingers and rub it. Sometimes that works really good. Now you can buy, here's a sheet right here of paper brick. This is by Paper Creek Models. I don't know if Paper Creek is around anymore, but you can get brick sheets from different people. This is something that I'm really excited about. This is actual brick paper, but it's got real texture to it. I mean, it's got, I'll pass these around so you can see it. Here's the paper right here by Paper Creek. And then this is brick material. And you can Google this to find this on the internet. I don't remember where I got it, but you can Google it. They sells it in different scales. This is the HO scale. I kind of stenciled on some yellow and some other stuff there. But you definitely can, there's a lot of different mediums in brick. And again, this is just trying to make things look old. That's the whole purpose of this. And I'll pass this little building around. You can see, here I'll do a little bit more on it first. But you can kind of see what I'm doing here. And the drywall sponge is definitely key to the kingdom. I'm always mixing the colors on the sponge too. I'm always using like 2 colors at least at once. I'm just lightly dabbing it on. The neat thing about this is it also gives texture to the brick when you do this. You can actually feel it, the texture on there. Anyway, I'll pass this around. You kind of get the idea of it. Of course, I would be taking my time more if I was doing it. But I'm trying to pass as much knowledge on to y'all as I can. These are things that I've just learned over the years. Some of them I learned from different people.
You go back over this with the white before it was done to get the mortar in?
Yeah, you could go over with the white first and get the mortar in. Fast and final is what I really recommend. It works better than paint. But anyway, you can go over and just, there's all this stuff is just stuff I've learned from trial and error or from different people I've talked to, different techniques I've seen, and you know, all of it works really, really well. Now, I get asked a lot about metal signs, okay? And I'm going to show you a couple of signs here. First, I'll show you the ones that we're going to be working on. This is a sign, and I just put silver. I cut it out, and I just put silver around the edges of it. Splattered it on there. And this is what they look like. They just come like that. Now all you do with these guys is you just take some silver paint and then you take a brush of sorts. Doesn't really matter which one. And you take the paint and you're going along the edges. And sometimes you're putting it on thick, you're not, sometimes you're not. The idea is it's going to trick the eye into believing this is a metal sign. Silver is the first color you use to do this.
That's just paper, something you cut out of a magazine or something?
It comes in, they come in sheets like this right here.
Oh, they're pre-printed, okay.
Right here, they come in sheets just like that. And here you go. And then you just cut them out. Now, if you're going to put them on a building as a not a metal sign, but as a sign that they, you know, the paper sign they put on the building, then what you have to do then is a little bit different. Because then you have to you have to get it really thin. The way you get these really thin is you take them and turn them over like this, get your finger wet, and you just reel your finger like this, and the paper starts to come off. You got to be real careful when you do it. And you just whirl the sign, keep turning the sign around. That's how you get them really thin. And then I use some tacky glue and some water mixed into it, kind of make it a little bit soupy. And then I paint the back of it, and then I just stick it on the building. And then take my fingernails and kind of press it into the brick or the wood or whatever it is. And that's how you get that look. Now, to get the metal signs, there's a series of things that you do. These are for rusty metal signs. You're going to need some black. You're going to need some barnyard red. And you're going to need a little bit of yellow. And what you're going to do is you're going to start again with my little foam applicator. You just start doing the edges of it. And you're just lightly pressing. You're not trying to get you're not going too crazy with it. The black is the next color you use. And again, right here. It really goes a lot faster than what you think it does, because it's just you'd be surprised how fast it goes. You just keep dabbing some of the paint off. It's important on metal signs too, when you're doing metal signs, to make sure you paint the edges of this sign. Okay, it's real important to do that. But again, you can kind of see the process here as I'm going. You can kind of see it right there. And there's the other one that I just started for this. Now, one of the colors that I usually bring that I didn't bring is raw sienna. So we're going to have to improvise here. And the raw sienna is more of like a brown, kind of a lightish brown color. Now I'm dipping in the barnyard red. If you buy, like when you buy an engine and stuff, this kind of foam comes in those boxes a lot. And you can just cut yourself out a couple of little pencils. As long as you wash them out after you use them, you got no issues with it. And now I'll pass one sign around when I'm done here that has all 4 colors on it, plus the silver. But you're just dabbing it on, creating the illusion of a metal sign. And the final color is going to be the orange. Get some of this off of here. And like I said, to me, it's very relaxing. I really enjoy doing metal signs, rusting them up and stuff. It's very, very relaxing. Now I'm going to pass these around so you can see them. Like I said, on these 2 signs, the brown is missing, but you can see here what they look like. They're almost dry. Here's the other one. Like I said, you'd have the raw sienna color in there. That's the only balance that you need to have. Here's one that has the raw sienna in it. You can see the difference in it right away, because that brown rust really shows through there. You can see it on that one. Now, using paper from for modeling is really, there's just a lot of things you can do with it. This is regular cardstock, 2 pieces glued together. If you can see that or not. And it's real simple what you do to get wood grain in this. You take a straight edge. Sometimes I'll use a machinist square. And I'll just carve my planking in there. I just installed a building on my own railroad, and it's got it's a dance hall, and it's got all cardstock floors in it, the bar in it, the stage in it, all of it's cardstock. So, and it really came out nice. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see right here. And just like that, I made it look like wood. Now it's old school. And then what you do is you take washes and you take powders, like this powder right here. This is a paint pigment powder. It's not. What it's not is it's not chalks. You take and rub some of this in here. And then you just take some odorless mineral spirits, which is what this is. And then I would come back and dry brush this with white to give it more detail. Now, dry brushing with white is a simple thing to do. You just dip your brush in some white or some off-white. I'm going to give this floor right here a little more texture, and then I'll hold this up so you can see it. Again, bringing it over here so you can see what that looks like. And there you can see what it looks like when you do it. There's various steps of that to doing it. Now, paper, this is something I did for this this clinic. This is all index card on here, this whole thing. And it's gray, it's painted gray with a little bit of silver mixed in there. Probably if I had to do it more often again, I'd probably make it almost all silver like this piece index card. But you basically cut the panels and then you just rust them and then you glue them on. And you can make, you can do the panels bigger than this. Now there's an easier way to do it. I'll show you this here so you can see it real good. I use the foam applicator to stipple on the rust. This one right here is kind of the same thing, except that I just scored the lines instead of putting individual panels on. I just scored lines like right here and stuff. And you can create all kinds of things. It's cheap material. I mean, it's just index card. You're just paint. And the rust stains you see on here are transparent orange, iron orange oxide. That's a mouthful, but that's what they call the paint. And you have to Google that. You can't buy that at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. You gotta Google it and buy it online, because it's not cheap, but a tube will last you forever. And you can see, I'll show you again on this. you can see just with the iron orange oxide, you can see it right there. And just doing that without doing any of the other rusting, you've already got a lightly rusted building without going through all this process, because this takes a lot longer. This is really fast. You just dry brush the iron oxide on. It's an oil-based paint, but you can dry brush it on. You don't have to use it as a wash. I do a lot of dry brushing with it. Again, here's the silver. And real quick, I'll show you. Again, using my foam applicator. And just dipping it in here. In the black first. And then I'm going to come back with my Barnyard Red, which is just very close. The Barnyard Red is very close to Burnt Sienna. Very, very close. But I'm just doing this so you can see how fast this actually goes. Well, right into the orange. And if I get too much of one color, I'll come back with some black and tone everything down a little bit. Just be careful not to get the paint on you. It's still wet. There you can see it. And you can see that's how I did all those panels on that piece I passed around. Done just out of painted index card. This is the piece I'm talking about. Right there, there it is. And there's the other way of doing it, where you just score the lines in the index card. Now, everything has got to be, like I said, I want to talk about some more about paper.
That's amazing.
This is another thing you can do. You can use a pounce wheel. And this is a pounce wheel to get various. You just go on the back side of the index card, and you get amazing results with it. I'll show you right here in a second. Show you real quick here. This is, if you can see it on the back of that paper or not. And this is what you can end up getting look like right here. Okay. There's the various phases of it right there, as you can see. There's a water tank that was done the same way. You can see that. And depending on what color you paint your tank is what you end up with.
What creates the rivet?
It's a pounce wheel. You can buy them at Micro Mart. They sell them in sets of 3. I use them at this device right here. This is the smallest one. You can see it's pretty small. And then they have various other ones that are a little bit bigger. They give you a set of 3, like I said. Now, a couple more ideas for structures, especially if maybe you have a nice wood kit you bought and you say, I'd like to make a base for that and make it 2-story or 3-story, whatever. This is an easy way to do that. And the way you do that is this right here is joint compound mixed with paint. It's on cardstock, so the cardstock has to be sealed. You have to spray both sides of the cardstock with a flat fixative. But then you put this, you smear it on there with your finger. The joint compound's mixed with paint. Usually an off-white like this right here, this color. But you can use a tan, whatever. But you mix the joint compound, probably about 30% paint and the rest joint compound. Just kind of estimate. You smear it on your sealed cardstock. Your cardstock is braced like that in the back. And then you smear it real thin, and then you pull your finger away. And it wants to stick to your finger, so it gives that relief. And this is a rough stucco look. It's very effective. I've used it on my structures on my own railroad, as well as other structures I built. It's a very effective stucco, and it's cheap, and it works really good. Now, when it's dry, you seal it all with a flat fixative, and then you can go back and you can do various weathering things to it. I'm going to pass this around after I show a close-up here of it. Okay, and you can tell I put little bitty nail holes and stuff, put a couple signs on there and stuff like that. And then I dry brushed a little bit with different, dirtied it up a little bit with a dry brushing of a gray or brown or whatever it was. Now this, I learned this from Jason Jensen, watching one of his videos. And this works really, really good. But the trick with this is it's spray can. I think Krylon makes it. It's called Sandstone Fine. Has to be fine. It can't be the regular. It has to be fine texture paint. And you brace your cardstock. You seal it. And then you come with this flat fixative and you spray it, and you have to go whoosh, whoosh. It's like 2 passes, that's it. Okay? You get it too thick, you ruin the illusion of it all. And all your hard work of cutting out all your window openings and all that other stuff, it all goes to naught. But it makes a wonderful, this would work for O scale, S scale, or of course HO. And it makes a wonderful texture, and then you can weather it with powders or whatever you want to do. Oil washes, whatever. But here it is. And it really is really nice. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about pastel paper. That's just stuff you buy. I only buy the black. It comes in different colors, but I only buy the black. And then I take my brush, and you can see I painted kind of crazy on there. I painted all one direction, but that's what I do with it. And I'm trying to get sort of a wood grain in it. I don't want to cover all the black up. I want some of the black to show through. And then I take my razor knife and I cut it in strips like this right here. And then I have markings on my building. My building is usually out of cardstock, and the building's framed, it's braced again in the back. And then before the walls went together, I used a machinist square. Now this machinist square right here, it's different than the other ones. This is from Michael Martin. It's worth every penny, because see how thin it is? It's really thin. This machinist square, you can get down and lay it right against wood. The other machinist squares are too thick. This has got a thin base on it. It's perfect for modeling. There's just not a better machinist square to do. And that's how I line up all my windows and my buildings and stuff like that. But this pastel paper thing, it's a cheap way to do clapboard siding. And I'll show you some various things right here. some things I did. You can see. You can do planking. Well, I'll hold it up over here. It's better. You can do planking like this, up and down, or you can do just clapboard siding like this, and you can see the effect of it. It's a lot of people. Troels Kirk. I got this from the Dutch artist Troels Kirk in Sweden. He married a Swedish girl, so he had to live in Sweden. So, but he's a Dutch artist, but he got into model railroading, and he has an excellent video. It's hilarious. The guy is funny. I don't think he's even trying to be funny, but he is. But it's called Realistic Colors for Your Model Railroad. But the guy, because strip wood and clapboard siding is expensive, he built an entire railroad using this method. All of his wooden buildings are pastel paper, all of them.
Pastel paper, is that where
You just get it. Michaels comes in a
Michaels?
book, and you just paint it like this. That's all. And then you cut it into strips and you glue it on. You just have to have lines on your cardstock. That's where your machinist square comes in. Make your lines straight and stuff like that.
that wheel again for the nail,
Yeah,
nail
the
head?
pounce wheel for the nail holes, and the artist oils. Anytime you use paper, especially in Florida, everything's got to be sealed with mineral spirits or dull coat. Otherwise, the bugs, they like it. So you do billboards, anything you do, it's got to be sealed. It's just a must. So now this little structure right here, again, I'll come over here, but this little structure right here, this is pastel paper siding. And I did this as a pilot model. I had 22 guys in the class building these. Very nice. And I did a class up in New England, and it was a lot of fun. And what was great about it is everybody had their own, style, however they painted the structure or whatever, you had every structure was different. Even though they were cardstock kit that they were gluing the material onto. And it came with the windows and the doors and all that stuff and the deck, the wood deck on it. Now, this guy, this is an O scale. And this is also pastel paper. And you can see.
Wow, very good work. Very nice. Looks real. Very nice.
So, and no one knows it's pastel paper but you.
That's amazing. The sealer, what is the sealer you're on top? To keep
A flat fixative. Just any
Michaels?
Krylon,
clear?
dull coat.
Yeah.
It's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want it. It's clear.
Like a mat.
Or you can buy. I buy liquid dull coat here in the store, and I'll just paint it on with a brush. You got to be careful because it's pretty toxic, the smell and stuff. But
Do you start with that and then finish with it?
no, I finish with it.
Just finish.
I finish the cardstock. I'll seal a lot of times just to make it give it a little teeth with the flat fixative. I'll just spray it with a spray. But I'll paint a lot of times. I'll paint and plus the signage on there. I don't want the bugs eating the signage, so that's another reason I do it. So, but it's very, very, very easy to use and stuff like that. Now this signage right here, again the paper sign on there. We're going to do a little bit of detailing to that. These again are paint pigments. This is a kind of a light rust. This is more of a reddish rust. Kind of see that a little bit. And then we've got some soot black here. And what I'm going to do, is just on this building here. I grab myself a little brush. Right here is a good brush. And I'm going to go right into this black first. Now, I already got some streaks. You can kind of see those a little bit. And then I'm going to go into this yellow rusty color. You can kind of see I've gotten it's starting to get a little texture on there and a little bit of color. Now we got some red. And because I stippled on all my coloring here, what happens is you get the powders tend to want to collect and catch on things, and that gives you more, even more of a detailed look. But again, this is on paper, paper on paper on paper, so it's you can do amazing stuff with it. You really can. It's just incredible what you can do. And I want to show you this one thing before I one color right here. This is this terrible looking tube. It's all sticky and everything else. This is transparent iron orange oxide. And it looks dark, it looks nasty, it looks like it's just a little bit out. You don't need much, but you're going to be surprised what you can do with it. You dip your brush in there like so. Okay, now I'm going to take this same deal getting a lot of it off my brush. I really got a rusty sign now. You can see right here. Military modelers use this color a lot. And you can see how much that sign has already changed. And again, that's paper sign on a paper brick building. But if you work with the brick, the paper brick, you can do a lot of wonderful things with it. That's another thing Trolls Kirk did, was he did all of his brick buildings. He has huge factories and everything else in O scale, and they're all out of paper brick.
Wow.
And I swear, you look at these things and you go, it's incredible, really. I mean, what he did, because he didn't have the money to buy all the material. You can buy brick material. You can buy wonderful brick material, but you start building a large scale structure and it can get quite expensive. And that's another thing. Trolls only had balsa wood, so he had to do, what we use here is basswood a lot. A lot of strip wood is mainly out of basswood, and that's not available that much in where he's at, so he improvised. So, and again, here's a billboard I did for this this clinic, and I made it last night. I just weathered it with some powders.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
Nice.
Now, the trick with these billboards is that you pick up a color in the sign, and that's what I have a rule of thumb, and I will paint the strip wood that goes around the edge of it. I will paint that a color to pick up a color in the sign.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I do. So, Here's a whole nother thing where they used to do a lot of advertising. You can see all that. They were all rusted the same way. And these are great effective things, kind of a barrier type thing, and also you can kind of see it. That's out of paper, yep. It is. Yeah, I brought this in because this boat is out of cardstock. Again, it shows what you can do with cardstock. And you can see the various, I used a wood burner on it to get all those gouges and stuff in it. A lot of wood burning on it to put the holes in it and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of the easiest way to do it, and there's a lot of dry brushing on it. But again, that's the beauty of cardstock. Frank Palmer designed that building, a part of the Suncoast Center for Fine Scale Modeling. He designed that for me. Again, I did a clinic with about 20 people in it building that boat. Not the sunken boat, but the other, well, was it? Yeah, we built two different clinics. One of them was they built the regular boat, and one of them they built the sunken boat on a little diorama like that.
What are the rocks?
Rocks are gray foam.
Gray foam.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, you can do some incredible stuff with it. Now, I get asked a lot about the wood buildings I do, and I learned these techniques over the years. If you're going to do a dilapidated building, this is clapboard siding. I brought 1/8 inch size. It's really more suitable for O scale. I've used it in S scale. Probably couldn't really use it in HO. Probably would be the clapboard would be like this, this thick, you know. Probably couldn't get away with it, but for the purpose of the demonstration in the clinic, I wanted to use it. Now, first thing I do, you can see I ran nail holes up there with a pounce wheel, and it's simply done like this right here. You get your straight edge on there, and then you just take the pounce wheel, just run it down like that. There you can kind of see it. Then I'll start gouging the wood. You can see a little bit of what I've already done. I'll take a razor knife, come in here, make some boards separated. I'll try to lift some boards. And this is kind of better to be done with kind of the worse your blade is, the better off you are. It's harder to do with a sharp blade. You really want a worse blade than this to do it with. And I'll take little notches out and gouge them out. The idea is I'm trying to give the illusion that, and I'll hold this up where you can see it close to the camera here in a little bit. There, that one came up good. Okay. But you basically work the wood pretty good. There you can see a board I raised up. You can see how that is. And it's raised up. I mean, it really raised up. That's kind of what you want. Now, what I do before I paint these, and remember, this is all about making a building look old, making something look old. That's what this dilapidated kind of thing. So what I do before I paint these is I stain them. And what I stain them with is I stain them with regular Payne's Gray, which is another artist oil right here. This is Payne's Gray. It's pretty common. You can get this anywhere. Any Michaels or Hobby Lobby has this. And then I'll take a little bit of raw sienna. And then we're going to have some fun, as I like to say. First, I'm going to take some powder. This is some kind of almost some, I don't want to say burnt umber, but it's kind of in that realm. And I'm going to take the powder. Now, the purpose of the powder is to get in all those nail holes and all those crevices. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is dip my brush in some raw sienna, oil-based paint now. I'm going to streak on like so. Just like that. I do both sides of the wood, staining both sides. Here, I'll hold this up so you can see it. Bring it in here close. Okay. And then I go into the Payne's Gray. And the important thing is to seal both sides of the wood. Very important. Now it looks a little dark now, but it will, of course, it will lighten up. You can kind of see what it looks like now. Okay. But it will lighten up. There's a piece right there that's been done. You take that. Now, after it's dry, and it has to sit at least 24 hours to be dry. If it sets even longer than that, it's probably better. But, you know, you can get by with 24 hours for sure. But what you want to do now is you want to get it ready to paint. Now there's a couple ways to do this. I'm going to just demonstrate with this blue right here. I'm going to put some blue down here on my piece of cardstock. And we're going to take a small brush. These right here. And I'm just going to mix a little bit into this white. And then I'm going to take a little bit and make it a little bit darker blue here. And then right over here, I'm going to make a little bit really light blue. Okay. Now, the way I do these is I take the wall like this. I go in here. I get some of this darker blue first. And I may stencil it on first. I can use a foam applicator for that too. Stenciling it on.
I'm sorry, and that material you're working on, what is that?
It's wood.
That's
It's
a-
clapboard siding. Strip. This is clapboard siding that comes in. You can buy board and batten, planking, this happens to be clapboard siding. And you can buy sheets of it. It comes in sheets, various sizes, depending on what it is. Now, what I do is I heavily dry brush, but not so much that I'm covering up all the idea being that what you want to do is you want to have, and I'm mixing nice shades of color here. Again, this is making a building look old. Lightly touching it. That's one of the keys to this whole thing, is just being light. This is like a, as Bob Ross said, like a whisper kind of thing. You're just barely hitting it. I'm getting almost white. I mean, it has some blue in it, but it's almost, and the lighter paint would be on the one on the top, because it would be, of course, more faded than the paints down below. And if I pull down, if I dry brush down like this kind of thing, like that, but if I dry brush down, I get too much paint on my brush. But you get the idea of what I'm doing here. There's a fan brush. Now again, I don't want to color so much paint that everything is gone, but these strips right here and there you go. Now here's a little S-scale structure, and the shingles are all paper on here, and they were colored with acrylic colors, and then they were finally washed with basically Payne's Gray and various artist oil washes. Here's another one. Here's an O-scale structure again.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And you can kind of see.
Nice work. Very nice. Wow.
And it has, I used a wood burner on the porch right here,
Wow.
kind of thing. And the shades are all tissue paper. Here's a combination of a couple things, an O-scale shack, but it's got the tar paper on it that's all ripped, is all painted newspaper over, and the wood underneath there is all cardstock.
Wow.
It's not real wood underneath the showing through there.
Very nice.
So, but there's just various things. Now this is a model I'm working on for a guy.
Wow.
This is a cheap plastic building, and
Yeah. Doesn't look cheap now. You did a good job on it.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice, John. Oh,
And
that's awesome.
so you can kind of see
Very nice.
I got to put people in it. I got to finish putting some glass in some of the windows and stuff like that.
Little LED inside, light it up.
Yeah, maybe do that. Here again is rusty metal. It's done the same way. This also has some of that transparent iron orange oxide on it. It's kind of the final coloring. This is KC Workshop sells this. It's he sells it in O scale, and this is HO scale. And again, the colors were stenciled on there after it was painted. They were stenciled on with a little foam, my little foam applicator that I just love because it works so well. But that kind of concludes what we're going to talk about today. And I thank you guys for coming. This again is at Zitnik Trains. And I'm a member of the Stucco Center for Fine Scale Modeling in Odessa, Florida. And we're having an open house next weekend if you can make it. You really should come if you've never been there. It's something to behold. And I'm just one of the many artists that's there. There are some fantastic artists / modelers there. There's stuff from all over the world. A lot of military stuff. 4 great train layouts. So it's got a little bit of everything. So thank you guys for coming and braving the weather, those of you that came, because the weather was not too great today. And have a good rest of the weekend.